It was good to be on your show. Thanks for having me as a guest.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time.
So, lots going on in the crypto world.
So true. It moves fast.
Um, I think there's not that I'm an oracle and all-knowing genius, but we've had a year, two cryptos with the exchanges, and really they're involved in derivatives. They're buying and selling transactions, but private keys are not moving. So it was easy to lower the market share and prices of cryptos, and it took a lot of the excitement out. There's been depression, especially people that got in 2017, and then to see what appears on paper, their portfolio going down in value. Maybe it let some of the air and momentum out of the market. But as you and I have talked offline in communication, I feel that that's not the case at all. In fact, key cryptocurrencies and tokens have accelerated in great value, but the person in the street, the common crypto holder or tire kicker, is unaware of what's happening behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the implications it's going to have.
Well, what I think happened is I think a lot of us, maybe using the word commoners, the everyday people got early on the bandwagon, early adopters of the technology, and I think that when that took place to the extent that it did worldwide, it kind of surprised, let's say, the elites or the central banks. And I think what they needed to do is manipulate the market to the extent to discourage us as a composite group and shake us out of our position in order for them to get their base, to get their foundation, because they want to steer this and guide this, and they wanted us to get involved in crypto after they were already well suited and geared up. I think we kind of jumped the gun, so they had to use 2018 as a beatdown year to shake the weak hands, and then they'll bring it back, but then they'll be in the driver's seat, so to speak, when they bring it back.
Yes, that very much seems to be the case. I really think the importance of older keys aren't quite understood.
I figured it in our interview today. We'll get into that. That is a tough concept for people to grasp. It's taken me quite a while to understand just what that means. So probably in 10 minutes or so, I'll get into that, but I'll kind of lead up to the pre-Bitcoin fork. So the pre-August 2017 BTC. Okay. What's happening is I think in your audience, this listening audience, knows that the global monetary system, the network of the central banks, and how money is created through loans and the creation of new money, that system's long in the tooth, and the model is not sustainable. It can't. It's just the mathematics involved. So whether you like cryptocurrencies and tokens or not, or don't understand it, there's going to be no choice. The world is going to have to adopt some type of new global monetary system. So the question is, well, what is it going to be? And what choices do we have if the fiat or paper money, the US dollar, the British pound, the euro, the yen, the yuan, ruble, pesos, whatever, if that is mathematically impossible to be around another 20, 50, 100 years, then what's the world going to use for commerce? exchanging goods and services, or settling trade settlements.
Yeah, the differences.
So you have, because as this global system crashes, you can't just simply come out with a new fiat currency and everyone's going to be okay with that. It's
Right.
so you could go to the traditional fallback with thousands of years of history of physical precious metals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gold and silver, and the reason why that works so well is gold and silver, as an example, has to it's not readily available, so it has to be mined.
It has its scarce qualities.
Yeah, scarcity, a lot of infrastructure to mine it, refine it, stamp it, get it in coin form, and then it's hard to counterfeit. It can be controlled. There's low risk that two families are going to go out hiking in the woods and stumble across a gold or silver mine and overthrow a government because minting their own coins, right? Well, I think that to a certain extent, gold and silver will be involved, but probably at sovereignty level, nation, trade, nation upon nation.
Mm-hmm.
And out of the two, I think silver has much more value than gold because silver is just too important industrially. You know, I think that an average automobile has over 2 miles of silver wire. Figure a thin wire, but 2 miles of it per automobile, and then all the little parts used in cell phones and computers and video games and jewelry.
Mm.
Silver's consumed much more so than gold, even though both are good conductors. So that will always have great value, but I don't think we're ever going to go back to where you and I or some 18-year-old kid in China
Isn't going to conduct with it.
silver dollars jingling in their pocket, go to get lunch or to buy a latest DVD.
I agree.
So that the physical, carrying around physical, right? So what makes sense, since we're in a digital age that is not going to go away, it would make sense that a monetary system, a global monetary system, would be digital based. We're geared up for that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Computers are so important nowadays, and the internet. If you took the computers and internet away, the world would come to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, you have everything just in time delivery, you have medical records, kids' grades, communication, inventory, everything is centered around that. So what really makes digital currencies feasible is the fact that smartphones, which are really complicated handheld computers, you know, because it's true when you hear that today's pick any cell phone, whether it's a Android platform or an Apple platform, any smartphone that's held by us today has more computing power than the space shuttles.
That's what I understand.
So the speed, the pixelation of the cameras, the memory, and the network of cell towers and so forth, the cost has gone down. China, for example, plans on having 1 billion people having a smartphone in their hands within 5 years, and their smartphones in US dollars, their smartphones are less than $54.
Yes, they're looking at it as a way to track and follow their people for the most part.
Well, that goes hand in hand too, because if you have if you need to, in their case, their government model where they're tracking people and then they're incorporating a social score, and that might be involved in your ability to purchase food, shelter, clothing, being able to get car insurance or enter a university based on a social score. if that's their motives, they're going to accomplish those motives because cell phones are inexpensive and they can get it into a billion people's hands, and then they'll have the network to support that monitoring, surveillance, or the complexity of just what is a social score, how do you improve it so that you can be a model citizen. And maybe the higher, for example, a higher social score means you have a lower insurance rate on your car, or granted privileges, certain privileges, public privileges, because you have a score of 700 or higher. I don't know how it's going to work out, but they can do that now that technology is getting cheap enough. Well, obviously, they're going to put a monetary system on that phone. So it's got to be crypto. There isn't anything else on this planet that's going to replace our fiat banking system unless it's blockchain and crypto.
Yes, the security aspects it provides.
It's already here. That's where it's going. So now it's just a matter of which cryptos, if it's a currency or a token, which cryptos are going to be the tier one, the most dominant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think some cryptos will kind of fade away. Others will hang in there because they'll have a niche feature, or there'll be a strong following, a strong loyalty, and they hang around just for the standpoint of a strong fan base or loyalty, and maybe a particular crypto that hangs around might not be on the list that Starbucks coffee, not that I go there, but that Starbucks coffee would accept, but
Yeah.
the crypto might be accepted amongst that cult tribal community. Like if it's the red coin or Doge.
They definitely have their factions that are drawn to them and support them.
Mm-hmm. Right. So there might be a line of clothing or comic books or concerts or so forth, to where the only way to purchase it is use this particular obscure coin, because that's the popular coin that they use to trade amongst themselves, because they're kind of a subculture or a little breakaway society, and that's the crypto that you use if you're in the inn.
Yes.
And you want to purchase this particular CD, MP3 file, or you want to get this particular artist, one of his paintings or something like that. Well, they only accept this kind of a cryptocurrency. So I can see that. But you'll have the ones, the mainstreams, the cryptocurrencies that the Walmart, the Amazon, the Starbucks, McDonald's, that a Fortune 500 company would accept. If you can position yourself early in those, then obviously you're being at the right place at the right time. You could probably double your economic social status if you were in a tier one coin now that really becomes evident 5 years from now, because you got in early enough. And this is probably going to be mankind's last chance to elevate yourself socially and economically, if you can guess this right. This transition that we're going through.
So how do you think they're going to onboard the majority of people? Do you think they'll have rewards tokens integrated into their phone, and then the next thing they find out that the token they have is now worth more than the US dollar?
Yeah, two things. You touched on it. You're absolutely right. That rewards program. Sometimes it's a little a keychain
Mm-hmm.
that you might have that has that magnetic strip. That though all those rewards, and they all have them: Target, Walmart, Starbucks, AutoZone, O'Reilly,
Right.
the auto store. Everyone and their uncle has. They'll convert that into a Starbucks crypto coin, and that's going to be your reward system instead of that magnetic strip that Panera Bread hands out. And then there'll be convertibility.
As with atomic swaps.
Right.
Yes. And that's going to get it into mainstream, and then Visa, MasterCard, Discover will absolutely help because people will still have their credit card for a while, whether it's got that chip. But what happens is it'll be a Visa or MasterCard transaction like we've had since the 70s. But the workings behind the scene will be cryptocurrencies and the blockchain. And the consumer could care less. As long as they could swipe their Visa card and get that cup of coffee, they don't care if in the background it was Litecoin that was used and the Lightning Network, or if it was a Bitcoin and Ethereum, or a combination of a Starbucks coin, because the merchant got satisfied, they got the cup of coffee, and off they went. So that's how it's going to slowly get into society, to where it's going to be pretty much idiot proof, but it's going to piggyback existing technologies like the Master Visa Discover card.
With an inflationary aspect to all of this, how do you think it will find an equilibrium where value is associated equally, where someone would say that's worth $1 and that's worth $10? It seems to dilute the pool of value by introducing more coins.
Well, I think there's a strong possibility that governments will introduce their versions of a stable coin. And then that stable coin will act like what the US dollar or the Canadian dollar against other government stable coins. It'll have that float and adjustment. And then other cryptocurrencies, one Bitcoin, BTC, might be worth 53,000 stable coins. Maybe it's a stable coin that you're paying your utility bill with, or your car payment, your student loan.
Right.
But you could sell half of your BTC to get 23,000 stable coins, and that'd be like what used to be $23,000 in your checking account.
Mm-hmm.
So bypassing that cryptocurrency inflation with something that society's already familiar with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that the government is okay with, and kind of champion that as the acceptable legal digital currency. I think what's happening is we're behind the scene, everything's kind of coming to a head, because within 10 years from now, this is a well-known statistic, within 10 years from now, close to 80% of all jobs done by us worldwide are going to be done by robotics and artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the leaders at the top are aware of that, and they know that there's going to have to be some type of universal income.
Right.
Because the mass displacement of jobs, and using a stable token, a government-backed cryptocurrency, to where you would get in your wallet, you would have monthly credits or deposits as your universal income, and that's what you would use. That's less than 10 years away from becoming a reality. So I think with leading up to this, the whole idea of credit scores and reward cards, as we mentioned, that retail establishments have, and the chip technology that was introduced in credit cards, these are preliminary steps getting the whole world transitioned into ultimately what's going to be cryptos. And I think the smartphone is going to be kind of a all-in-one. The smartphone is going to act as your ID, your passport. It's going to have maybe medical records on it. It's going to be your bank.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that way now. So that phone will become very valuable because your identity is attached to it. Your credit score, it's your phone that the government would deposit each month, your universal income credits. And I also think it'll get to a point where you won't carry the phone like we do separately, because it'll be too valuable that you could drop it or slip out of your pocket in a booth at a restaurant and you lost your, because people panic nowadays. If you lose your cell phone, you lose a lot of pertinent data,
Oh yeah.
and people panic. So I think it's going to be so valuable that it's going to be some type of wearable device
Hmm.
where it's waterproof and won't slip off,
Mhm.
whether it's like a band, a
Hmm.
band that a band that you that's pretty durable. It'll probably have like a wristband that has the flexible screen
Yeah.
where you could watch YouTube videos or have video calls, but it's waterproof and it's probably something you wouldn't take off, but you would shower with it and it'd be shatter resistant.
Hmm.
But it would fit, and that's basically that wearable device is your wearable cell phone, but it'll have your crypto wallet. Maybe they'll have mining capability, or they'll certainly be tied into the atomic swap or lightning network. And then, of course, as you mentioned earlier, it'll also have, you probably won't be able to turn it off. It'll probably have GPS locating all the time, real time. So
Mhm.
powers to be would know, they could tell if you're sleeping because it can monitor your pulse, um, or listen to your breathing. So they'll know, oh, well, this obviously they're sleeping, and they'll know where you're located, and then they'll know when you're exercising. It might even get to the point where it's so advanced it can tell what your caloric intake is. So to avoid obesity, maybe if you're eating too many sugary foods or carbohydrates, that wearable device alerts a government center, and
Mhm.
maybe you're docked as a penalty. If you go over your caloric intake, you're docked on. Mhm. Yeah. So to keep the society healthy, because healthcare costs are obviously more expensive if you're not eating right and you're overweight. So they're going to morph this into where there's a lot of control and surveillance and just knowing your day-to-day 24-hour activity, but you can't take that device off. I mean, I guess you could, but as soon as you take the device off, how are you going to get on the bus pass? Or if you fly, that's going to be part of your TSA identify. You're going to have it with you just to function.
Much like the China social score.
Well, and let's say global politicians in this scenario, let's say they all had good intentions. Um, for the most part, let's say they were honest and were interested in the well-being of the citizenry, and wanted to have fair trade and make sure the environment wasn't being polluted. The whole scenario.
Mhm.
Even if you had the best intentioned politicians, the the sheer concept of government and the fact that government becomes almost a living entity of its own, government, as it gets older, naturally gets more predatorial or more surveillant like. That's its definition. It can't help but get more power, more control, more surveillance. And it becomes this thing that eventually crushes free will and independent souls or being. It becomes this blob.
Yeah.
So as the years go by and technology advances, that's what governments will do. It can't help but have that progression. And then, but I think what happens, it gets to a point where it's stifling to the human species. The human species eventually won't be able to survive because the governments have gotten so controlling. And then that's when you have all these science fiction movies that have run this scenario,
Yeah.
future Earth scenario, right?
They definitely seem to implant those thoughts into our minds.
Well, I think what's already happened, um, and I guess it's been a little longer than 10 minutes, but I'll address the the original Bitcoin, pre-fork Bitcoin. I think there's around eight maybe a little more supercomputers around the world. The United States has a couple, China.
Yeah, I've read about satellites orbiting in space offering that.
Mm-hmm. Right. So part of these supercomputers is AI, artificial intelligence. So I think what's happening is there's already a war, a battle going on amongst these supercomputers as to which one is going to rise to be the dominant or prominent AI. And these AIs and these supercomputers are competing. That game as a kid you'd play, maybe King of the Hill. They're competing to see which one's going to be more dominant, and it's going to be winner take all, because the AIs that lose this battle will probably succumb to the control of the more dominant AI.
Those that fail won't have an option.
Right. So I think what's happening behind the scenes is the most dominant AI that's going to be king of the hill is going to be the one that controls the most private keys of pre-fork BTC Bitcoin. Now that's a staggering prediction if you think about it.